What's going on YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys another video today. Today I'll be showing you my branded Invoked Eldlich deck profile. It's been something I've been labbing and working on for a while, and I'm pretty happy to finally bring it to you guys. So to start us off, we do have the 3 copies of Alistair for the not too much to say here. It's your main invoked starter, so you're going to play 3 of your boy Alistair. We do have 2 Alubers. This is mostly because I am playing branded opening, so if you do have Aluber, you can use it. You can summon it from, typically you want to bring this out with branded opening, but 2 is kind of the number I saw in a lot of online deck lists, and I think it's kind of the correct number. There are some scenarios where normal summoning is not bad because you just don't have access to Alistair at all. So yeah, 2 Alubers, I think it's, and then there's 2 Fallen of all bosses. This is a pretty standard number. He's a pretty cool guy. Obviously you can normal summon him to bait out and get rid of, any extra deck monster for your Mirror Jade, which is pretty nice. We were playing the 2 copies of our boy Golden Lord. I have seen some lists playing 3, but I don't think you need 3 this format, with the Bestials kind of being rotated out of the format. And we also play Lubellion to shuffle it back from the banish pile if it does get banished. So yeah. Then for the remaining monsters, we have some hand traps. We have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring alongside with the 3 Nibiru's. As long as branded and branded variants are in the format, you're going to need this card. It's not as good against Kashtira, but I just think it's because branded is the second best deck and it hits that deck hard. It's also not terrible against Labyrinth. It hits their trap that special summons from the deck. And Nibiru is just, it's really good against variants of branded that aren't playing Dragoon, and it's really good against Kashtira. Obviously, it's a complete blowout. It's also a light attribute for your Mechaba in a pinch, so that's pretty nice. Then moving on to the spells, for the invoked stuff, of course, we have 3 Magical Meltdown, 1 Terraforming, and 2 Invocation. Important to know about Magical Meltdown, I'll briefly mention it while it's here. Obviously, it's more copies of Alistair, but while it's up, Trap Tricks are locked out of using a lot of their trap cards. Any of their trap holes are completely locked down while Meltdown is up because they can't respond to your fusion summon, and that's the window where they have to activate. So ideally, in the Trap Tricks matchup, you don't want to send this off of Golden Lord unless you absolutely have to, because that protection from those trap hole effects against them is really, really valuable. So yeah, pretty strong. Also, it does prevent, obviously, Terraform and Search It, and the 2 Invocation, pretty standard numbers. Then for the branded side, 3 branded fusion, 3 branded opening. This card is absolutely nuts. Being able to send Golden Lord straight from your deck to set up all your Eldlich traps and stuff is absolutely insane. And opening obviously is 3 more copies of your Aluber, which is really nice. The discard can also be nice because it can put Eldlich traps from your hand in the graveyard, as well as the protection effect, which is kind of relevant because I've noticed some people are main decking board wipes for Kashtira. So that branded opening protection can be pretty nice. Then, of course, we're playing Eldlich. So we are playing the remaining spells: 3 Cursed Eldlin and 1 Elixir of White Destiny. White Destiny is usually there because it's yet another card you can set if you have both the traps and to banish in the end phase. And Eldlin is obviously the Searcher. Destiny can also play around things like Bestials, things like, other effects that would look to disrupt your Golden Lord summoning itself. Just bear in mind, it does lock you into zombies for the turn, so you want to kind of be careful using it that way. Then at 3 copies, then for the Eldlich stuff, we have 3 Scarlet Sanguine, 3 copies of Conquistadors, and 2 copies of Hunkero. This has been a pretty standard. I decided to bump Hunkero down to 2. Not only I've seen a lot of lists doing this, but we're also not in a super graveyard dependent format, with Kashtira being the best stack. So you don't necessarily need those 3 copies of Hunkero. But everything else, Conquistadors is obviously really strong, being that free pop of any face-up card. And Sanguine is obviously what kind of makes the deck run. Being able to grab your Golden Lord straight from your deck to set everything up is really, really nice. You can, in a pinch, much like with White Destiny, use this to play around Bestials and whatnot. Just bear in mind, it also locks you into zombies for the turn. Then for the last 3 traps, we are playing 3 Skill Drains. It's an Eldlich Slitch, so you're obviously playing Skill Drain. It doesn't hurt the deck as much as you would think it would. You usually flip this after you've already activated your Mechaba and maybe your Mirror Jade for the turn. But Mirror Jade does send for cost, so you can still activate her under skill drain and it will still send the Albion from your extra deck. So it's not the end of the world. Typically, at this point, you're going to have so many big bodies on the field under skill drain that if it's in your way, you can use Eldlich to get it off the board and then kill your opponent on the following turn. So I still think it's an incredibly strong floodgate. It's really strong against Kashtira. They're only really out for it is going for a Draco Sack, which as long as you have some kind of something to stop them from going to Draco Sack in the first place, it's pretty nice. So yeah, really strong. Then we're going into the side deck. So we have three copies of Artifact Lancia, 3 copies of our Dark Ruler No More, 3 copies of Twin Twisters, 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, and 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Evenly is probably one of the best cards in the format right now. It's really good against Kashtira unless they go for the really heavy zone lock play. But if they lock you out of 9 zones, you're probably losing anyways. So, but it's still really strong against Trap Tricks. It's really strong against branded variants that aren't playing Dragoon. It's really strong against Labyrinth. It hits a lot of different decks running around in the format right now. As far as Barrier kind of speaks for itself. I mean, yes, in the branded matchup, it turns off your Mechaba and your Mirror Jade. But like I said earlier, Mirror Jade can still activate and send for cost. And it's honestly a trade-off you're willing to take, because if they branded can't fusion summon, they can't play. So it's a trade-off you have to take. I still think Dark Ruler is a good card, but I definitely think that there's some things you could trade with it. It's not as good against Kashtira because obviously it doesn't turn Era off, which is one of the biggest problems in that matchup. You could definitely, if you feel like, if you're purely worried about Kashtira, you could definitely replace this with Book of Eclipse. The big thing for me in this deck is Dark Ruler's fine, because as long as I can have an Alistair, I can get the Eras off the board with Purgatrio and clear their whole field, and they're going to have a hard time coming back the next turn. Twin Twisters, I had considered Lightning Storm, but I'd noticed there's a lot of Floodgates running around the format right now. Labyrinth in particular are playing some, and Twin Twisters can be effective against those. It's also good going first against Labyrinth compared to something like Lightning Storm, because you can set it, and when they set all their back row, you flip the Twin Twisters and knock a couple of them out before they can even use them. It's a little bit, in that way, I think it's a bit more flexible than other. You could also play Cosmic Cyclone, but I kind of like Twin Twisters in this deck's a bit more flexible because you have cards you want to discard. Then Artifact Lancia is pretty self-explanatory. Against Kashtira, it prevents them from doing a lot of their big blowout combos under this. They can still kind of make a field, but they have a hard time doing like those big blowout stupid combos they do. It's not terrible against branded because it does stop Albion from activating, which is big in some situations, but I'm not entirely sure on that matchup. And if it can hit some rogue decks like Dinos as well, if someone happens to be playing that. It's just mostly there because I know that if they can't hit my stuff, that's the most important thing to me. Now moving on to the extra deck for the Albaz side, we have 3 Albions, 2 Libellions, and 2 Mirror Jades. Libellion is honestly absolutely gross. Like, some of the things this card does, being able to shuffle back your banished Alistairs and Golden Lords is fantastic. And it really does help the deck a lot. I opted for the 3rd Albion because I really like having one on the initial play, then one to send, then a 3rd one to push and blow out my opponent on the following turn. And the Mirror Jade kind of speaks for itself. It's one of the best boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Not too much to say there. Really, really strong. Just important to remember, Libellion is locked, can only summon level 8 or lower, so you can't summon Mechaba with this, unfortunately. Speaking of Mechaba, we have 2 copies of Mechaba and 1 Purgatrio for our Invoked Fusion. I have considered playing Caliga, but Caliga's stat line, in theory, Caliga would be good if you can protect it against Kashtira, but it's a small monster. It's only 1900 defense, so most of the Kashtira monsters can swing over it, and it just feels like a waste to use an Alistair just to protect a Caliga. So this is my fusion lineup. Purgatrio is obviously there for the OTKs, and Mechaba is your negation. I'm still playing the train package as well. these are really good for when you do have the 2 Golden Lords in the rotation, and Gustav's obviously really good when you're going into time if you can get to it. And Libe can be another piece to kind of alongside Purgatrio to kind of help you clear fields. And these 2 are an OTK if your opponent happens to have an empty board. Then we're only playing 3 Link monsters. Artemis, Almirage, and Dark. Dark is there for things like Contact C. You can't make Almirage needs a normal summon monster, so you can't link off. If they give you an Ibly or they give you a Contact C, you can just go normal summon an Alistair or Luber and then go into Dark instead. You are locked out of Branded Fusion, unfortunately, but I think that's kind of the breaks. But you still need the Artemis and the Almirage for those situations where you don't have access to a Luber, but you still need them to go into Mechaba, so I still think they're worth playing. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this deck profile down in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. This is Warstorm, signing out.